Hello, warlords. Welcome to Saga Thursday, the show all about the Saga miniatures skirmish game universe, published by Studio Tomahawk. I'm your host, Rodge, and I'm joined once again by my good friend, Monty. How are you, Monty?
Rodge, doing well. How about yourself?
I'm pretty good. It was a pretty good June for the Rodge family. How about yourself?
Everything's good here. Absolutely.
Okay, well, glad to hear. Well, every month we get together, we pick a topic. Sometimes I announce that topic at the beginning. This is very few times I do that, but I did remember for this time. So we're going to do a little Saga Math, a little Saga statistics here as the main topic of the show. We're going to talk about mathematically, when do you spend those fatigue points on the warlord, the enemy warlord, to lower his armor down? Because as we all know, you spend the fatigue, that just gives him more wounds for resilience. So, there's a mathematical solution, and I've talked about it before, but I finally cracked the code, Monty.
Wow.
And it's actually extremely interesting, and
okay,
but we're gonna talk about that at the end.
Before then, I want to hear it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk a little hobby, some games. I believe both of us got games as Jomsvikings in.
Yes, we did.
Right, Mike? Yeah, so that's funny coincidence. And you were playing against Anglo-Danes.
Yes, Anglo-Danes.
And I was playing against Anglo-Danes as well.
Wow.
So we're gonna have a little tit for tat comparison of that. We've got comments, Q&A, got a couple pictures, and then let's kick it off with some news and events. So, Monty, are you aware of any Saga news? I do have a news item, and you may have seen this news item. I don't know.
Yeah, it might have been. I saw it only by way of rumor, so I'm not going to say what mine is because it was completely unsourced, just dropped in a forum, and I'm like, I don't know.
Ooh, wow. Ooh, that sounds juicy. But
yours is probably real, though.
Okay, yeah. So there was a post on the Saga Facebook group, and somebody, I think, called out Alex Bouchel, asking about invasions and the age of Hannibal, what's going on, and he responded to that call out.
Wow.
So the age of Hannibal has crossed the Alps, so to speak. So it will be coming to us relatively soon. I think it's edited or off to the printers, or some milestone has been achieved. So we should be getting that sometime this year. And then looks like Age of Invasions is the next book, kind of confirmed, and that's on the way as well. So we kind of knew that already, but it's nice to get the confirmation. No timeline was given, but start getting those Carthaginians, Numidians, your Romans, the Greeks, getting them ready, the Celts.
Yes.
All safe bets, I believe. So that was my news. Was that your news as well? Did it somehow
get... The second part. I've seen a lot of people buzzing about the update on Age of Invasion, and someone said, I heard early 2021. And that was it, right? You see that and you're like, okay. I mean, so I just kind of filed it away. But it kind of lines up with what you said. So maybe they picked it up in the same place.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah, I would assume, hopefully, Hannibal by the end of the year, and then if everything's back to normal in Europe, at least, perhaps they will be getting that out relatively quickly. So,
that would be nice. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, so a little bit of Saga news. And we've got a Saga event as well. So last episode, news and events was pretty sparse, but we've got one of each today. So do you know what event I'm going to talk about, Monty? This is a quiz episode. I keep hitting you with these questions.
I really wish we shared notes before this. Or maybe I listened into the professor's lecture, right? Could it be a digital event or something else?
Oh, that's a good question. We got to talk about that later. But it's Saga Storm, Monty.
Oh, come on, Monty. Oh, my gosh. It's the heat.
Jeez.
It's like 90-plus degrees
Monty's
in my room.
He's in Cuba right now, enjoying the Latin beats.
I wish I was.
Yeah, Saga Storm has been announced.
That's right.
September 19th, Saturday. That's in the Twin Cities. And it's always outdoors. So it's the perfect social distance, in-person event. And it's going to be, do you know what age it is, Monty?
Age of Magic. It will be Age of Magic.
Okay, yeah, the standard 8 points. So that's cool. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah.
For a moment there, I was having a little panic attack because I was like, oh, I gotta finish these Vikings by the end of summer, I guess. I don't know if I could do it. And then I'm like, it's this Age of Magic. Okay. Whoo!
That's right. Bring those demons.
Yeah. I think I will have to. I've kind of thought about what I could do here as far as options, and I think it will be the demons. I don't really want to bring the demons, but I might bring, because I played probably like 30 games with them. So
wow.
I'd like to. That was like last year was a big year with those guys, and I could add some new stuff. I may do that, but I kind of thought about, well, maybe I can do the Vikings that I started as like a good core, and then I'll add some, mythological elements, some trolls or whatever. But I'm trying to think of like what board they would use. It'd come down to Horde, I think, is really the only one that makes sense.
Yeah.
But then, I'd want to use the chariots. So I'm kind of, I'm not going to put a Viking on a chariot. That's kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd probably be cool, but it's not a boundary I'm willing to cross. But maybe Monty give a Welshman a machine gun on a wagon, I mean, so you probably don't have a problem.
Everything goes.
Putting a Viking on a chariot. And then I do have all those wood elves, but if I played Lords of the Wild, I would want to have like warriors mounted with bows, and so I don't have any of those. I'm definitely not going to paint any, but do you know what you're going to bring, Monty?
So I've got 2 forces painted. I did paint back my Great Kingdoms, but I actually know a pretty decent number of my buddies are running Great Kingdoms right now. And so I don't really, as much as our things will look quite a bit different, I don't want to like have, 20% of the armies be Great Kingdoms. So I think I might put the pin in them and maybe bring my Abyssal Dwarves as Otherworld, probably.
Cool. Otherworld.
Probably. Yeah.
Not the Under Earth.
No, gosh, I've run Under Earth and just in the very beginning, I was experimenting with Under Earth and Levy units, Shield and Spear, and then I had a few games where people cracked the code. They're like, Levy, Shield, and Spear, we're gonna go mounted, we're gonna run circles around you, and we're gonna kick your butt. So I've kind of paused the Under Earth.
Okay. So do you think Otherworld fare better against Great Kingdoms than Under Earth?
I think so. They've got mobility, and they've got some interesting tricks on that board, and they're my better fantasy figures. So you want to put your good stuff out on the table.
Oh yeah, when it's Saga Storm,
you
lead with the best.
That's right.
Okay. Oh, cool. Yeah. The 19th at a pavilion at a park up in the Twin Cities. Come on down, check it out, and we'll be there. Well,
oh yeah,
I probably will be there, Monty. I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
But
understandable. It's it's a few
good.
things, right? We've been really lucky with the weather, and even the one time we just had a little spit of rain because we're sitting under a pavilion. As long as you don't get your 30-mile-an-hour, sideways blowing rain, you're fine.
Yeah, bring your metal figs. Leave the plastics if you can.
Right.
Or get a solid, chunky base for them. All right. All right. Okay. So that's it for news and events. Let's pop on over to some comments from last time, Monty.
Okay, got it.
Always good to revisit.
Yeah.
This one is from Lawrence Bateman. We have played a couple different games on Tabletop Simulator. We have found that if you click on the weightlifter guy, top of the screen, I like that description. That's something I can understand. You can adjust how high the minis are picked up and easier to control. So you don't have to use the shadow method of where to place your figs after movement. So that's awesome. That's a great tip.
Good tip. Yeah. I like that. It's the little tips that help make this a better experience. The first time I tried it, I just fumbled around a lot, and I just didn't build a comfort level. By the second time and third time, you pick out like how to lock down terrain, how to spam your units, and it's like it all starts coming together, and it moves quicker too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I like this tip too, because we talked about last time a couple tips, just charging in and just leaving your unit the way it is and not necessarily moving everybody in base and just calling it. But I'm kind of anal retentive. So I want to move all my guys into base, contact where they're supposed to be. So this will make that a lot easier and a lot more bearable for everybody. So thank you, Lawrence. Comment number 2, Hercus Monty.
There we go.
Monty's mixing up the mood lighting here.
Ooh, it was a little bright.
Okay, intense. This one's from Hercus Monty. The crossing scenario is a weird one. If you choose, you can only have 1 or 2 combats the entire game and spend the rest positioning your units. So we kind of dived into that one a little bit last time and recommended that folks play that a couple times to try and get a feel for it. And I could definitely see that. Could you see that, Monty?
Yeah, I mean, we were playing it straight up, let's kill each other, Viking on Viking. Yeah. But as we were like halfway in the game, like we kind of refocused on the victory conditions, and you made that very observation. Like it's all about moving, and you don't have to really fight, and it's true. So
yeah, so it's interesting because I think there would still be fights because so the value of the units getting crossed is like disproportionate to like the damage they can do. But so what we want to do is let their big units go through and then stop those little units because they're worth the same points essentially. So it's going to be about taking down those little units and making sure you have more units on your side, I think, is probably how I do it. But I think we definitely got to get another try of that in.
Yeah, might need to be tweaked.
Mm-hmm. True, yeah. If you're running it as an event, you might want to monkey around with that. But,
yeah.
All right, we got one more comment here. Is there any Discord group for Saga? This is William Morrow. I didn't know if there's a message board or anything like that available to get more info. So there is a Saga Thursday Discord, William. So this is just a PSA and FYI. If you click in the notes on pretty much the last year or two worth of videos, there's links to pretty much every Saga kind of resource that I know of that's current. So we have the Discord, the Facebook group, the Studio Tomahawk forum. Those are the more popular ones. But I would like to take this opportunity. I would like folks to check there. And if there's anything missing that you know of, either like you personally, Monty, if you know of something, or anybody watching right now, if there's other Saga groups or anything like that, I'd like to add that link below. I'd like to refresh that from time to time. So one thing is there's a Scandinavian group. I think there's a Polish group on there. I know there's a Russian group. I don't remember if I have all these linked, but I think if there's more country-specific Facebook groups or VK or whatever social program people use, I think it'd be handy to have those down below as well. And I don't necessarily know all of those. So if folks know of some country-specific Saga groups, please let me know, and I'll get it added to the big link, the big list of links below. Got
nice.
It?
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Well, I think it's enough comments. We did get a few photos in once again, Monty. So these are from Lucas in Bavaria, Germany, and you actually know this fellow. Is that correct, Monty?
I do. It's the most interesting thing, and it's part of the reason why I love this hobby so much. Quite a while ago, it might have been like 2013, 2014, Eric and I posted up in different social media places. Really nice. He had his Vikings out. He had his ships out. He had his board with the beaches, and it was a visual treat. And Lucas pinged both of us, and over the years Lucas and I kind of keep in touch. He'll ping in and talk about what's going on in Bavaria, what's going on in his life, and I do the same. We share saga news, painting tips, and the only thing I haven't done is met him in person, and I hope that one day I get to do that, because he looks he seems like a really great guy.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's a good painter as well. Good hobbyist. We have a nice flocked board for these Anglo-Danes, a nice little piece of terrain. Actually, a couple different ones, a couple different backdrops here. And these are the Victrix fellows, and they look great.
Yeah, very nice.
These are cool. I guess I didn't realize that, like, some of these guys are wearing kind of like a scale mail.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if that's like, they had like an Anglo-Dane specific box. Maybe that's where they come from. I guess I never noticed.
They do. They're just killing it, right? Mm-hmm. I think I'm like 90% certain they have an Anglo-Dane box. They're really, really doing good work in the Dark Ages.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are great figs. Well done. Like the basing. Mm-hmm. Very similar to the basing I've been doing lately. Taking it easy. Looks good. Great stuff. Thank you for sharing, Lucas. And if anybody else wants to send some sweet Saga pics, send them over to rodgerules@gmail.com. I'll have a link below, and we will share them in the next video. Okay.
Nice.
Well, Monty, you got some nice hobby pics to share as well. Well, one pic. Which one are you choosing here? So
let's do the Byzantine spearmen. I got 24 of those painted. So this is the project where, because the Age of Crusades, the Byzantine spearmen are levy. I personally, like, my vision for them was that they should be in robes and not armored up. But in order to get that, I had to do some kit bashing. I bought the Fireforge Byzantine boxes. I used the arms and shields from the standard spearman box, and then I put them on the auxiliary figures and also some gripping beast Arabs, so that everyone is in basically robes, and some Arab headdress mixed in. Keep it looking like, they're kind of ragged. The empire's starting to get thin here, a little falling apart. And then to really help that effect, Rodge, we talked about like using an airbrush, and truth be told, I had a bit of an accident, which made me almost want to throw my brush out the window.
No.
Yeah, this just seems to happen. I was really, I'd kind of built up my confidence with the brush. I was kind of happy with it. And I was working, I have like a little nook here. I don't really have a dedicated airbrushing space, so it's kind of squeezed in. And so the space I'm working, I've got some cleaning stuff to my right, and I got some paints to my left. And I was bringing in the Liquitex white to highlight and then put the red over that to make it pop a little bit more. Mm-hmm. And I was trying to be careful because I had done some figures and they came out like bright Roman red, like really high reds. I'm like, gosh, they're levy. That just didn't seem quite right. So I was trying really hard. Anyways, I was all intent, and my elbow caught the Liquitex white. It dropped onto my chair, onto my pants, onto the carpet. The whole thing dumped out. And I just stared down at the massive mess. And I just I had to really take like 5 calming breaths and then clean up for 30 minutes. But it kind of took the wind out of my sails. So they kind of became a little workmanlike, because basically I dumped all of the Liquitex into the carpet, and I didn't feel like I was kind of pissed. Let's be honest. When I got them done, look kind of ragged. They're workmanlike, but it's numbers. They'll be when they're done. It'll be 48 levy figures, and then 12. Well, yeah, is that right? Well, 36 to 48, and then there will be either 8 to 12 mounted Hearthguard to back them up, or some mix like that. It ends up like that. So that's a start.
Wow, that Liquitex White ink. That's a powerful brew. That's not one you want to drop.
Let's
sure.
just say I heard about it, because I have a reputation for wrecking my clothes when I paint. I just impromptu paint, and I'm just painting in something nice, and all it takes is one little foobar, and suddenly you got it on your shirt. And then real quick, I sneak in the bathroom and try to clean it myself, because I don't want to, like, here. I know I should be wearing something, or not, wear some raggedy clothes, but yeah. But that one I actually had like my little painting thing on it. Didn't matter. It landed right in the corner chair. Yeah, went right into the pants.
On the neck.
You
had your 5-up armor, and it just popped the 6. Gotcha, Mr. Black.
Exactly. Oh man, Rodge, that just doesn't happen when I don't use an airbrush, right? I mean, because ink, that is some viscosity. That stuff just dumped like water. Whereas if I spill one of these, Vallejo paints, I might get a drop or two. I generally not going to dump the whole thing.
It's true, yeah. Bottle design.
Yeah.
Perhaps superior in that regard. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that, but glad to see these guys got done. So we're looking at the spearmen, but you essentially finished the archers and the crossbows as well.
Yeah,
looks like
they were kind of batch painted, so like it's kind of the same effect. The one thing, Rodge, if I could ask your opinion, the one thing I had a little trouble with, I wanted to kind of try to sneak in the purple shadows, but I did base these buggers up, and I'm using the 25mm base, and I really struggled to try to, and in retrospect, I think I maybe should have glued them to like a popsicle stick so that I could get a better angle on the brush with the undercoating, the purple undercoating kind of from the under. Is that the secret that I missed there?
No, not necessarily the secret, but yeah, that could be an issue. So on one of the models we'll look at in my Pics, it was like on a dwarf on a 50mm base. So you could see trying to get underneath that was extremely difficult. So probably the same kind of issue. I think having them on a stick would help if you're one of those guys. I mean, you could line them up and
that's it.
Hit the spots that you need to. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I think you probably could get a superior result. Just having something thin that you could really get underneath, doing the anti-zenithal shading work. But well, these guys look good. I like the red with some pops of some pink and some blue. That's pretty cool with the yellow. How did you decide on that pink and blue?
So I've painted Arabs before, and the Arab. Okay. Oh my gosh, we just learned the word.
Oh and no!
I blanked on it.
Oh no!
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna have to go back to the Saga Thursday. Okay, I've forgotten the word. So the headdress is the place where you can cheat and bring in your bright colors. And so I can say, like, from having painted Ottomans, that when you look at like Ottoman art, their military units, pink was actually a popular color. And so I think it's fair to, it's I don't know. I can't source it exactly, but I know pink was actually a color they used. There was no, at least back then, I don't believe there was any connotations like, there was a Barbie or anything. So no, I sneak in some pink, some oranges, some bright blues. This is the place where you can kind of break it up and just sneak in a little pop of color here and there.
It's called.
You could do white too, right?
You could. The name for that roll at the base of a helmet is a torse.
Torse, got it.
John McLennan. I
Thanks,
went back. He's helping us out.
Torse.
Cool. Yeah, looks good. I like the yellow ones, the blue ones, the pink ones. Goes well all together. Okay. Well, I did a little hobby work myself, Monty.
Yes, you did.
Are you looking at my pic right now?
Yes, I am. It looks awesome, Rodge.
Yeah, so mine was a little different, straying from the historicals, which is pretty fun getting back to just, let's go nuts. Let's do whatever colors we want here. Let's get crazy.
Yep.
So these are god tier figures. So I completed one champion. So that's like a dwarven geomancer or something like that, crystalmancer, something like that. With their little crystal, the quartzlings. And then I've got the skellies done. I'm working on, basically they have a lich champion. and I'm still working on that. So that's what I got done since last time, and yeah, it was pretty fun doing those guys.
Yeah, that looks great, Rodge. I love the bone. I love the blue on the axis. You got, I think, right, non-metal metals going there.
Yeah,
this is really sharp.
Those are thematically, they're like ice undead or something along those lines. They're called cold bones, and they have ice blades for their attack. So that's kind of, it was fun just trying to do that, some kind of ice effect.
Yeah, nice.
So yeah, I talked a little bit last time about stuff I was going to try. So with these guys, one thing that I tried, and I don't think it really worked in my favor. It didn't hurt it, but it didn't help it. And so I think I need more practice, is using an oil paint wash, an oil wash. Have you heard of that, Monty? Have you ever dabbled?
I have, but I mean, if you're going to bring oils in, then it means white spirits, long dry times. But I'd like to know. I know, is it James Wappel? I'm going to pronounce that wrong.
Oh, I like how you said that.
Wapple?
People say Wapple, but it could be
amazing
Wappel.
Work. And he works in oils. He works in everything, but I see him do a lot of stuff in oils.
Okay. Yeah, I have seen him do oil stuff. That kind of the YouTuber that I've been looking at his stuff is MarcoFrisoniNJM is his name, so I'll have a link to that below. So he did some speed paints of the Warcry war bands for Games Workshop, and he always used an oil wash. And like, I knew about the oil wash, but people always said that you had to do whatever you're painting and then do a layer of varnish before you did the oil wash.
Protective coat, right.
And for some reason, that was always like, well, I'm out. That's too much work. I can't. That's one extra step. I'm not going to do it. But Marco said that you don't have to do that as long as you're careful. So I'm like, no extra step there. I'm in. I'm in 100%. So picked up some oil paints, Winsor Newtons, got my white spirits, got my special crap brushes that I'm only going to use for the oils. And so you mentioned drying times, Monty. So once you basically dilute the hell out of the oil paint, basically you create a wash, but instead of water, you're using the spirits, and you dilute it down basically to a wash. Once you get that on, it'll dry quickly, overnight for sure. Wow. And within a couple of hours, so the spirits dry pretty quick versus, if you just painted oil paint on there, like you said, yeah, it would create an issue for sure. But so on the Geomancer and the quartz slings, I did a blue, kind of like a dark blue wash, and the consistency, he can't say exactly how many drops you've got to. I think he's Italian, so he has a rich Italian accent, which is just a joy to hear, Monty. You should check it out. But you just got to do it by feel. So I wasn't really quite sure, and it took a couple tries. The nice thing is you kind of do multiple layers, and it like reactivates the previous layer. Because it'll dry, but if you apply the spirit or more oil paint, it like reactivates it. So that's kind of a good thing. So so why would you use an oil paint? So the I don't even know the words here, but it flows into the cracks a lot better.
Okay.
And then the parts, your big wide open areas where, there's going to be a stain, like if you use a wash normally. After you kind of apply whatever you're going to do, you can go back with a Q-tip and kind of just rub it off. And so you kind of clear it completely from your raised areas, and it just stays in the cracks. Okay. And then in between, it'll create like a nice gradient, theoretically. So his results are as I described. My results, a little mixed. The cracks and stuff, it got in there. Sometimes it looked good. Sometimes, it was like a bright blue versus like a dark blue. And then I couldn't really get it off the high areas. It still kind of tinted it like a little bit blue, like on the quartz slings, which was fine, but it didn't come quite completely off, I noticed. And just rubbing with it, I was careful. It didn't rub off any paint though. So that was fine. And then it took a couple passes. It took some work to clean it up. In the end, I probably could just did like a normal wash and just kind of been careful about where I put it and probably gotten the same result, I think. But so that was my first attempt. I did it on the undead guys as well. I did a black one, and it was kind of similar. The way that their armor and stuff is, it made it kind of difficult to go in with a Q-tip, because that's like a pretty big knob, on the end of that. So it's not like I'm going to get between the armor. And so what I noticed on that one is when I was trying to clean it up, I was getting the raised areas, but then I was also soaking up some of the oil that went into the cracks.
Okay.
So it kind of like undid the wash almost and just left it kind of stained and dirty. So I kind of had to go back and just kind of work over it. I did normal highlights. So it ended up just kind of being like a black wash. It wasn't really even any better or any worse for all the extra hassle of using the oil. So I'm gonna keep trying it on these God tier figures, see if I can figure it out. And then I talked last time about my Arab experiments. Mm-hmm. So I just been working on these God tiers, but I'm going to use the oils on those guys too and see how it, on those big wide open areas, how that works. So that was a fun little experiment with those guys. So
good job. They do look awesome, Rodge. I don't see, you know what I mean? I know as the painter, you have certain things that, but I mean, I look at them and overall, I'm like, yeah, this looks awesome. Keep doing that.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I went back, did my usual things. And then actually on the undead guys, I actually did some actual kind of paint mixing and layer painting. I haven't done that really for a while. But with the scale 75 paints, I can see why people use those for that technique, because it's really translucent, and it just made blending all those layers, like, it worked really well. Looked really nice. So if you're doing that style of painting, the scale 75s work really well. They do take getting used to, because when you're putting it on, it's always brighter than how it dries. Oh. So if I got my layer, and then I'm eyeballing the color. If you use something that's like slightly brighter for your next highlight, when it dries, it's the same highlight.
Oh,
you didn't highlight it.
Oh,
so
no.
you have to go
Got it.
one step further.
Yeah.
And then you're putting it on, and you're like, oops, like, is this right? But then when it dries, it's translucent and it tones it down, and then it looks perfect. So
nice.
You just got to lean in, get comfortable with being uncomfortable, Monty. If you want to
have faith.
If you want to use those. So I always call that brute force painting. If doing the base coats and a wash, and then whatever the pre-mix bottles, if you did all that and it still didn't work, and you have to go back and mix, that's like, I call that brute force painting. I don't know. Do you think that too? I never want to do it.
No.
Like, it looks good, but that's what I always think. I'm like, well, I'm just going to have to muscle these guys with mixing paints to make this look good. So it's been a long time since I did that, but on these guys, the models, they're fun. It's nice doing 5 of those guys and not having to do any more.
Yeah.
I will say for God tier, I think these little champion groups would make excellent Age of Magic heroes.
Yes.
And then their little gangs, would make good hearth guards, I think. A little 4-pack. So, I'm going to have a Geomancer. Maybe I'll use this and the Quartz Links in my demon force.
Oh,
Maybe I got
nice.
a wizard here. I don't know.
Right?
That blue kind of matches some of the blue on the demon. So I don't know. Maybe I'll end up doing that. But the models are interesting. They're a weird plastic stuff. I don't know. One thing with this initial batch was they look pretty good, but they're completely covered in hidden moldines that you can't really see until you prime.
Okay.
Or you have to know that they're there. So on the other ones, I knew that they were there and I knew where to look. But, and I picked this up from MarcoFrisoniNJM as well. So, this is kind of like a weird plastic, kind of like, I don't know, have you like board game plastic models, Monty? Like it's not the same stuff that we, even like Games Workshop uses. This is like, have you ever worked on that stuff or tried to?
I have not. I mean to do some Mansions of Madness, which might be kind of like this plasticky stuff.
Yeah, I'm guessing that's probably what it is.
Yeah.
So cleaning it up is kind of weird because the knife doesn't really work that good. The file, kind of leaves a texture. So Marco turned me on to 1000 grit sandpaper, and that works like a dream.
Okay.
You use the file first, and then you use the 1000 grit to just smooth it out. And so all the ones after this, the mold lines and stuff came out much easier than my first attempt on these guys.
Good pro tip.
Another little pro tip there.
Yeah.
Monty. But, these guys turned out pretty good.
Yes, they did.
One last pro tip. So I went on vacation for a week, and I hauled all my painting supplies. And my pro tip is you can do that, but it's a lot funner to just paint one or two guys and, do them up really well and finish them quickly because that's really fun versus batch painting, which isn't fun. So I was batch painting, and then I'm like, it's my vacation. This isn't fun. And then so I switched to finishing just one of these guys, and then that was fun. Actually, the funnest part is finishing. So
yes,
just concentrating on a couple guys is the best thing to do. But I did bring like 50 models just in case. I had the most productive week.
Wow.
Like if my family disappeared or something, I'd be able to really hammer these models, at a lightning pace. But okay, that's enough hobby stuff for this month. So I'm going to continue on the God tier. So you got some Hearthguard for the Romans? Your last Romans you think you're going to do, or do you have a plan?
Yes, I do. I have 24 mounted figures, kind of a mix in there. Some of them will be like Byzantine Hearthguard, probably about 12 of them, and 12 of them will be kind of a mix of weapons and bows, so they can kind of be Turcopole, be a couple different mercenary options. So when I put all the boxes together, I had 24 mounted, so that'll be the next leg. And then at the finish line, the Warlord, of course. And I did grab, I don't know if I'll ever use them, but I bought the Gripping Beast Western Mercenary figures. They're gorgeous figures.
Mm-hmm.
And I will say, though, like one small thing, they're like heroically large. Like I got them out and I'm like, oh my, but that's okay.
Really?
You know what? They're going to be like, they're Western knights and they're big guys. They've been well fed and they're ready to chop. So that's on the back end. They're a mercenary unit. We don't use mercenaries a lot locally. So when I do them, it'll just be for color because mostly, that's not a thing that people around here do for whatever reason.
Oh.
I know.
Let's get them painted. I'm sure you'll find.
Yeah.
That they
put them
have
in somewhere.
Many uses. Yeah. Cool.
Plug and play.
So, you're going to declare, Monty, July. It's all going to get done.
Oh God, no, no. There's a lot of things going on. I'll take it. I got a good leg up on the Hearthguard. I'll maybe work on them, 8 at a time. Get the if I can get the 12 points amounted Byzantine Hearthguard. That's kind of a nice mix. When you do this, mostly levy force, then you could put them in a 6 and 6, which goes back to the issue we've talked about before, where you kind of get nervous running them as 8. You don't want to run them as 4 because that's too little. Anyway, so that's the plan. I haven't run them. It's all theory, and I got the figures, so I'll just paint them and see where it goes.
All right, cool. Yeah, glad to hear it. Well, let's jump to some game chat here, Monty.
Yes.
You got a game in.
I did.
How did it go?
So I got a little lucky. I got 2 in, and I'll be kind of quick, squeeze them down.
Sure.
And I just mention it because, in these unusual times for us, it's a little tricky to first of all, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of stuff that's shut down. People are trying to be careful. So a friend of mine asked me if I would feel comfortable to come over and play Saga at his house, masked up, outside. And so that's what we did. So that was like one game. And it was an Age of Magic game. It was kind of goofy. I drank a beer on an empty stomach. That's a disaster for me right away, right? I looked at his build, and he had these beautiful Games Workshop figures that were heavily converted. So I just impromptu, I had a list. I threw it away, and I just started grabbing kind of colorful counterparts. It was a dwarf on dwarf battle. But with the beer on the empty stomach, it went kind of badly for me quickly. We were done in 3 hours, so that was extra safe. Finishing your Saga game quickly, extra margin of error there. So. But we were outside. It was in the sun. It was just nice to face throw some dice and talk to a buddy. So,
cool.
So that was one of mine.
Mm-hmm. All right. I've got a game in as well. So your second game was in the simulator? Oh, okay.
Digital.
Well, that was my game. So I played a game against Arthur from Russia. So pronounced Artur, something along those lines. And I was using Jomsvikings, and he was playing Anglo-Danes. So I was using the Joms because I got my game against you with the Vikings, and I was kind of felt like I was done with the Vikings. I started running those in fall last year. I was planning to be done with them around Adepticon, so I've got enough games in with the Vikings. I don't need to get any more games in. So I was thinking about what I'm going to jump to next. Artur wanted to do Age of Vikings, so I decided it could have been Pagan Rus or Jomsvikings for me. So I decided on Joms. So I wanted to use a faction that my Viking force, once I get it finished, I could use them as. So I just get some games. So I picked the Joms, and I have to say, it's pretty fun using the Joms.
Yep.
If I want to play a quick game of Saga, historical, Age of Vikings, and there's a timeline for whatever reason, I'm gonna pick the Joms because half of the abilities are disabled to start with, and maybe they're in the entire game. So that cuts down on your decisions.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think too hard about what you're gonna do as far as the battle board goes. You still want to think about what you want to do on the battlefield for sure, but it was cool. It went quick. I didn't have to think too hard, and it's a good game against Artur, and he was using the Anglo-Danes. He had the unit of Bretons in there,
okay,
and he had a unit of Levy with archers, and so that's probably. I talked about using the Anglo-Danes, and they needed a little something extra. So that's probably how I would try to run them if I had some Bretons and some archers that I could beef out my guys with. So I thought it was a good way to use them, and ended up being a pretty quick game. And I lost Monty in the end here against these Anglo-Danes. I made a few different mistakes, so a couple small ones, we'll say, and then I think there was one big one that in my first run with the Joms I didn't quite run them correctly. So for my list, I ran 4 units of 6 warriors with heavy weapons. Gotta like them. And then I ran 2 units of 6 Hearthguard. Just the sword and board guys, and then my warlord. So it was fun in some ways. What I was trying to do with the Vikings, these guys can do like better, because the little units can have heavy weapons, so they hit harder. They have an ability that it's pretty easy to get off, get the extra 6 attacks, and then with the activations, the 3-for-1.
Yep.
It's really easy to activate all those guys. And then when they are beat up and down to 1 or 2 guys, and I think we talked about before, you never have, there's theories of what you can do with those guys and, charge them in and get a fatigue on them, but you never have enough Saga dice to do that. But with the Yoms, you still do, because you're still doing 3-for-1 activations. So you can charge in those 1 or 2 guys, get another fatigue on, and then pile in with a fresh unit. So there's some cool things there with the smaller Viking units that you can do. But so that's what I was using. So the first mistake was against Anglo-Danes. You should not take the heavy weapon warriors, because they have the ability, which against some armies, it's called Crush the Weak. If the enemy's armor 3 or less, gain 4 attack or 4 defense. So playing as Anglo-Danes, that ability can be nice, and sometimes it's really annoying because you can never use it unless you set up some kind of little combo with a fatigue. But taking the heavy weapon warriors, you screw yourself, because you lower your armor, so you're easier to kill, and then he goes in and he can... Artur liked to use defense dice more than anything, so he would always go for a defense dice. So it just cancels the extra damage you're going to do. So, and I didn't really think about it till the end. I'm like, oh yeah, like I was seduced by the heavy weapons. I didn't think about it. But so that was a mistake, for sure. So I would have stuck with the regular sword and board guys, and make him work for it a little bit if he wants to use that ability. The second mistake that I did was, so we used the cards, Monty, the Battle of Heroes. So we ended up with survival points. We did show of force. So I kept using my shooting attack, Nordic Tempest, on the Bretons, which it worked out okay. You kill 1 or 2. I mean, it's a nice ability, but you're never going to like wipe out a unit. So I was just plugging away on those guys. But with survival points, those guys don't even count. I'm killing half as many points because they count as half for survival, because you actually don't want your mercenaries to make it through to the end. So, could have changed things. Maybe he held them back once I killed a couple versus, maybe there was still a reason to do it, but I was like, oh yeah, was that a good idea? If I was doing it again, I think I would have done some things differently. And then also, we talked about it, I would always use Nordic Tempest first, when I should have just used it last, because there was some points like his warlord was exhausted. I could have took a crack at the warlord with it. I don't know. I've been indoctrinated by playing against Jomsvikings players. They always use it. And does that happen to you? They always use it first. Yes. So I'm
they do.
Oh, well, I don't want to forget. I'm always going to use it first. So I always use it first. I always use it on the Bretons. And so I could have held it back and then chosen different targets, going after Hearthguard or something like that. The big mistake that I made was, like I said, we used the cards. So we picked cautious. The game ends after 5 turns. I had to go first, and I can only activate once per unit. And then we also got Forced March, which during the first 2 turns, it's made as though you're using my fatigue, so we're all short. So if we think about it, and after the game, it was quite clear. So with the Jomsvikings, you have to win a turn early because the last turn they can use, wrath, and it just complicates things because they can cancel stuff. You have to put extra dice down just in case. So it's not going to be really a good turn for you. So you need to win before the last turn. So I needed to win by turn 4, and I could only activate once on the first turn, and then turn 2 I was slow. I was slow the first turn, and I was slow the second turn, and so I needed to get in there and win on turns 3 and 4, and just kill as much as I could. But on the first 2 turns, I kind of moved up. I didn't even activate everybody. So by the end of the game, about half my units never fought. And that 5th turn, I was like, oh yeah, there's nothing. I'm trying to figure out the puzzle of, do I put out a home gong or appeal to the gods if you mess me up? But I ended up just pulling back because he was ahead on points, and I wasn't going to be able to make up it. And the little man was up and about in the household, and I'm like, all right, let's just get this done. So yeah, he ended up winning. I beat up some levies and the Bretons a little bit, killed some warriors, but had a chance at his warlord, a couple hits on him, couldn't quite do it. So on turn 3 or 4, I think I could have maybe took out his warlord, and that would have made it a close game, but didn't happen. That warlord ability, armor 6, ditch the fatigues. It's good. It's good, Monty.
Oh man, it's brutal.
So
it's tough. Try combining it. Yeah, try combining that with a bard one day. It's doubly good.
So I ended up going down, but a great first game with the Jomsvikings. And do you have any? So you played a game as the Joms versus the Danes. So anything you had to add to this, or just general? Maybe we could dive in a little bit, maybe on the Joms.
Yeah.
Not like a review, but tactics and stuff. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh, it's kind of shocking how similar our games and our builds were. I did the exact build. I love heavy weapon warriors. I took 3 points of them. I put in 4 units and crushed the weak. And then his shooting was really good. And then he, the Lords of the War with his warlord, with Hearthguard left and right. So he was pocketed with lots of people who could make sure if I nick him over, he can grab, have this guy die in resilience. So he would come in with the Bard within sight under the FAQ, which means your warlord now is throwing 10 dice, heavy weapon, armor 4, but he's got these buffs where he can kind of get a few defensive dice. And resilience 2, that's the key, resilience 2. I once dished out 5 hits on the warlord, and with resilience 2, it's 1, 2, 3. Okay, good job. And by the way, it's just played Lords of War every turn and wipe all that out, and he's fresh again in my turn, and he's in armor 6, right? So he was a wrecking ball, and between that and Crush the Weak, just ripped the guts out of my Dane Axe warriors coming in there. It was just as I watched it unfold, I'm like, yeah, that's a good play, really good. What have I got? Oops. And like often happens, he's a very talented player, and he gave me 1 wrath the whole game. Just 1, right? So never really got to get into those juicy wrath plays. I like the Joms. I love the Fury of the Pagans. The activate up to 3 units, which means you can go warrior heavy and not really get punished because 1 uncommon gets 3 up to 3 units of any kind, warrior or Hearthguard going. And most players, if you backstop that with a dice sitting on Song of Steel, then if they happen to cancel activation, they will at times cancel a key charge, right? I saw that in my game the one time I got Wrath. He knew what I was doing. He knew he was exposed, and so he took it. But if you backstop with Song of Steel, then if you're moving a bunch of units and someone goes shut down, shut down, shut down, then on Song of Steel you just go move, 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 and by the way, at the end of the move, shoot, shoot, shoot. How do you like that? So it's a brilliant combo. And I do like Nordic Tempest, being able to pick anything on the board. And in his case, I just took a chance. I was shooting at Hearthguard, and the one thing that went right for me was I managed to kill 3 Hearthguard with Nordic Tempest before the game ran out. So,
baby.
So
Nice.
the witches carried their weight, but the Daynax guys did not.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Couple questions. Did you like you said that you used 2x6 Hearthguard?
I did. I got shot up, and I didn't make my saves coming in, and pretty quickly, if you start bleeding those out and they're down to a 4-pack, I mean, that's I can maybe get my 4, my 8 to 11 dice, but I don't know. I'd have to play with it. It's like maybe the second time I've run the Yoms. I like them, but I definitely need, even though, like you said, there's like a heart to this board and there's some common abilities, I need some practice, get a few games under my belt and work on my builds.
Okay, cool.
Like you said.
Yeah, I think I want to get some more games in. I'm not sure if I will in the near future, but I think I would try. I think I would actually try 2 units of 4 Hearthguard instead of 2 units of 6. Get more warriors, and then try to use those guys to support the warlord and make sure he gets into the fight.
Yep.
And then, in our game with the Vikings on Vikings, you were using the little 4-man Hearthguard packs, and the 5-up armor, closing ranks is super annoying. Monty, did you use the combat bonus a lot? That's one of the best things about this. So if you're getting shot up, the 2-for-1 on shooting defense dice is really good, and that's kind of how I weathered the shots against Artur. Was every time I'd shoot, I'd pop one of those, get 2 defense dice, and you probably, if you roll okay, you'll make it through. It's pretty good. Did you use punishment at all?
I did not roll a rare in the whole game, which is fine. This board, you don't need a rare, but I didn't roll one, so there you go. Yeah. But that is good. I think it really matches out, like, what does your opponent have? And now I'm looking, that could have shut down Lord of War, which his warlord was the wrecking ball. He destroyed the heart of my army just simply with his warlord, and even one turn he was so bold he double charged and survived it all, and then sweep all the fatigue, and then in my turn I'm like, wow, that's a hard one. That's a hard counter. And he did not play the fatigue. That really threw me. I was ready for a game of him dishing fatigue. He didn't dish fatigue once. He came right at me with defensive play.
It's too easy for the Yoms to slough that off.
Right.
The only reason you'd use that is if you're going to charge that same turn to use it before, because he uses 2 rares to pop 3. You could Fury the Pagans, 1 uncommon. Boom. Cancels his 2 rares. Yeah, so it's not a matchup for him. Yeah, I wanted to use that. I didn't get it early, and the rares, and then I only really got them. I only rolled 1, so I kind of kept using it on Pagan Faith. It's kind of tough. Like, you have to put it there, because otherwise you're not really dishing them out much. When you get down to it, like, you kind of got to win by the activation game. Is where the Yoms are winning versus these abilities here. So I want to get some more games in. I had a blast thanks to Artur, and good times. If you have any tips for the Yoms, what's your build? What do you like to do? Let us know. Post below. If you got any tips for beating those Anglo-Danes, let us know. Okay, Monty, this is what I'm waiting for.
Right.
I did the math, the statistics. We're going to look. I made an Excel spreadsheet, Monty. There's data
on
that sheet. There's charts.
Okay.
A lot of repeating numbers. This is pretty advanced stuff here.
Am I going to have to be Jonathan Nash to understand this? Is this something a liberal arts major can understand?
You will, buddy. So once I did it, so there's like a weird, beautiful, Monty, mathematical symmetry here where, so this is our question. You're going in against the warlord. He has 3 fatigues on there, for example. That was all my tests on. Do you spend the fatigues to make them easier to hit, or do you leave them on and hope you roll those 5s and 6s or whatever you need? And we know at some point there's like a math solution to that problem. So the way that it works out is actually really interesting. So I kind of did it. There's only 2 different numbers you really need to know. Is if one, if they're blocking on a 5+, so normal, or if they close ranks. That's what changes the math, is if they close ranks.
Yeah.
Their starting place for their armor, be it a 5 or a 4, it didn't factor into the math, the decision, weirdly enough. You would get more wounds you'd get like an extra wound on the armor 4 guy, but it didn't factor into your decision. So this is what I found out. So if you're going up against a warlord and he did not close ranks, if you're rolling 1 to 8 attacks, it's better just to leave the fatigue on and hope you get the 1 hit through.
Okay.
At 9 attacks exactly.
Wow.
It doesn't matter which option you choose. They're all mathematically identical.
Okay.
So if you're hitting a warlord with 5+ armor who's blocking on a 5+, you're going to get statistically 2 wounds through. If you leave it on, or if you burn it all, or some weird combination, statistically, no matter which one you do, because you're taking a number down and subtracting, you're going to get statistically, it's going to be 2 wounds regardless. So at a 9, you would just leave it on.
Yep.
Because there's no reason to take it off. So 10 or more attacks is when you should consider spending it. So at a 10+, so each level was like a little bit better. So spending all of them was always better than spending 2 or 1. Does that make sense? So you'd either leave them all or you'd spend them all.
Oh, wow.
So you're always going to, just statistically, it was always slightly better to spend it all. Now, the thing is, are you going to spend all the fatigues to get like a 10% chance at like 1 more wound, though? So there's a risk versus reward, a mechanic in play out well. So we kind of solved it. If you're on the last turn of the game, you're going in and nothing else matters. If you have 10 or more attacks, spend all the fatigue, because statistically that is the best option.
Okay.
Now the problem is it's only slightly better at 10, and then at 11 it's better, at 12 it's better, 13, 14, if you're rolling 30 attacks, you can see how spending the fatigue and hitting on 2s is better than just leaving it and hoping for 5s. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I have to be honest. Well, first of all, I'm honest. I liberal arts major, so math is, can be a little tricky for me. But when I make the choice, it's always leave it or spend 1. It is almost for me counterintuitive to spend 2, 3, 4, like you said, spend 3. Sorry, 4. What am I playing? Age of Magic. But spend it all to just max it all the way up. I'm really intrigued. I will be taking a look at that and I think it'll help me bake in, like in live games. You don't want to sit and like hem and haw too long. You kind of like rely on your gut, and we know how like you got to be careful when you rely on your gut. Your gut can kind of take you the wrong direction, especially if you've had a beer on an empty stomach. You think you can be Superman and do anything. So I like that you've broken it down mathematically, and I'll be taking a look at that.
Okay. Yeah. So if you just want to spend one, that's fine. If you have 10 or more attacks, spending one will get you more wounds statistically than not spending one. And that's probably the safer thing, because you don't want to burn all three and then, it's just a slightly better chance. He survives, and then he could be fresh, or you botch your attacks.
Right. That happens.
It's not that big of a deal, because if you spend all three, you're probably going to be hitting on twos. There's extra stuff that I can't even factor in to my basic stuff here. But it's not that bad, because he's probably still going to be exhausted. Yeah. Even if you spend it all, it's not like you're going to miss every attack and he's going to be just have one fatigue. You're probably going to get a couple wounds, and he's still probably going to be exhausted even if you didn't kill him. So I would probably lean, now that I'm talking out loud, I'd probably lean towards spending it all or nothing. That's probably what I do, because he's still probably going to be exhausted even if you fail. Yeah. And the worst thing is if you leave it on and you fail, he's still exhausted anyways. But so I kind of had a couple extra numbers here. So on a 10 or more, you should spend it. On a 12 plus, I kind of labeled that like a safe spend. So if you're rolling 12 or more dice and you spend them all, you're going to get statistically one whole extra wound at that point. So if you roll worse than that, you're still going to doing more damage. So that's that.
Interesting.
And then the way that the armor breaks down, all it is if his armor is 6 to start with for some reason, instead of doing an average of 2 wounds at 9 attacks, you're only doing 1 wound. 5 plus armor is 2 wounds. 4 plus armor starting is 3 wounds at 9 attacks. So that could be handy when you're trying to decide whether to engage the warlord, whether you're going to be able to kill him or not. So on average, 8 warriors going into a warlord, is probably going to do 2 wounds, you could say. So, if he's exhausted, probably go in. You're probably going to do it, but I think we knew that. Yeah. So with the 4 plus block, it jacks up the break-even point. So if you have 11 or less, 12 or less attacks, you should not spend the fatigue. Wow. You have to be rolling 13 or more to mathematically benefit from spending the fatigue.
Yeah. Yeah, that is tough. When you see the warlord closing ranks to stay alive, right? They're in a tough spot and they just keep doing it. You just, in your heart of hearts, you're like, you just remember, oh, look, I rolled 4 saves out of 4 or 3 saves out of 4. The 4, 5, 6 just seems like it is much easier. Well, not much. It's an easier mark than the 5s or 6s. And just grit your teeth and keep coming in. I like that. So 12 or more. I will be reading that and filing it away.
Yeah, so it really just comes down. So I'm going to have a little chart here. But basically, it's just 2 numbers. If he closes ranks, you need more than 12. So however you want to remember that. Either 13 attacks or more than 12. And then if he didn't close ranks, you need 10 attacks before you should spend it. So hopefully that should speed up my games. Yeah. Because I had always wondered that, but never made a spreadsheet and spent 25 minutes of my life figuring it out. So hopefully those numbers are correct, and maybe somebody could independently see if they came up with those same figures. Obviously, if there's extra defense dice, re-rolls, getting extra hit on a 6, it's going to change everything. So maybe this won't be as useful to me as I thought, but hopefully folks got some use out of that.
Yeah,
So,
I want to test it. I mean, test it. That sounds ridiculous. I want it to influence how I play, and I think it will. So nicely done, Rodge.
Okay, buddy. Well, I think that's gonna do it for this here episode. Is there anything else we need to chat about?
That's all I got.
Okay, cool. Well, hopefully you found that useful. If there's any other Saga Math problems, post below. Maybe I'll handle them. Maybe I'll kick it over to Monty. We could do a tit for tat.
Why would you do that to me?
Well, it was fun stuff.
Yeah.
Double check your work. Yeah, good times. And post below with any questions, comments, anything we got wrong. If you played Jomsvikings, Anglo-Danes, any tips there? If you have any rules of thumb for spending the fatigue that we didn't discuss, let us know. But hopefully you found that useful. And we'll call it here. Monty, thanks once again.
Yeah.
We'll check you later.
Saga!